And what else? A part of Nefer Global Movement. Whoop 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 whoop. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. So yeah, like Nikki said, we had judging, so I was a part of the judging panel. Had some workshops, which was well, had a workshop which was awesome as well. And yeah, I'm just excited to be here and have this conversation with all of you.
Yes, lovely. Nice, Toyin. You come to Sweden every now and then, and it's almost like we can forget that you actually live really, really far away originally, but you're around pretty often. So it's nice to see you
True.
here, connect like this, and to still have you around somehow here.
Yes. No,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes. And we have from Sweden, dancehall extraordinaire. Make some noise for Binta.
Yes, my name is Binta. I'm from Gambia and Sweden, live in Stockholm in Sweden. And I'm the founder and member of Blackout Dance School from Sweden. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. In short, there's plenty of
Yeah,
things,
in short.
but that's how it is. We just know. We don't
Yeah.
have time to talk about all of the amazing stuff that we have done in our lives.
Oh, yeah.
But
Don't
we
get
see
enough time. Yeah.
it shines through. Nice to have you, and I look forward to have these talks and also to hear your point of views coming from the dancehall community,
Mm.
but also living in Sweden and also being a traveler, and you see how life is in different countries. And yeah,
Mm.
it's all about perspectives in it.
Yeah.
And when we are here and able to have the conversations, that's when I think we can grow and you know learn something new and share something new, hopefully. All right, thank you, Binta. Yes, and last but not least, hailing from France, went through Norway. You know, he is the DJ of our time. He plays the soundtrack to our lives. Make some noise for Stu.
Hey, thank you, Nikki. Yeah, I'm Stu, dancer, DJ from Paris, like you just said. I moved 10 years ago in Norway, Oslo. I'm there and sometime in Sweden. You know, always been a fan of Sweden. So, I'm here to share, and have those panel discussion with everybody,
Yeah,
Just good
awesome.
vibe anytime.
Nice. Happy to have you and also to talk because, like you say, you play, you DJ, and you dance. And for us to meet and talk like this is good stuff.
Josh.
It's important. So, for everybody who's out there, what's good to know is that we had a few other panelists that was also going to join us, but hasn't been able to make it for like personal family reasons and so on. So, just so you know, it's not false marketing. There was some things that came up individually for them. So, we are happy that we were still able to do this. But with that being said, we're also changing the structure a little bit. So we, instead of having three parts where we're going to discuss three different topics, we're probably going to shorten it and talk about these three topics, but in one setting. Yeah. So if you have any questions, if there's something that you just want to share or say, it could be a statement, idea, or question, there's a Q&A button that you can press here in your Zoom, and you can write your question there. And then later on, we collect all of it and we pick out some questions that we bring up here. So we are happy to have you interacting with us. I think that would be amazing. And this is a moment for that. So use it, use it. If you have thoughts, questions, or something like that, just make sure you use this opportunity, and hopefully we can bring it up and hopefully bring some clarity to it. This is also this is a talk that, in my opinion, is more about sharing ideas than letting the world know what's right and wrong. Blah, blah, blah. And also saying that we are all trying to figure out our ways here. And I think by doing this collectively, we can actually get somewhere with it rather than to police somebody into something. We're trying to figure out how to do this as a community, and yeah, it's definitely through moments like this we have a good opportunity to make some positive changes. So let's do it. Wow. So yes, I have some questions and ideas for us to talk about, and I'm also curious to pick your brain about. But before we go into that, all of you, some people might know all of you, some people might know one more than the other, and so forth. And just shortly, like a short background, how you got into dancing. What was it that got you into dancing? Stu. Ah, Toyin was going. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, for me, I actually didn't choose to start to dance. It was my parents that put me in dance, and so they put me in dance classes when I was about 3, and I was just an energetic child, jumping around the place, and they wanted to direct my energy in a place. And so, yeah, they started me taking little tap classes with my uniform on, doing recitals. And so, yeah, so they put me in that. And also, like, the places that we were living in, the neighborhoods weren't the best. So my parents didn't want me to, like, in my free time, going out and about in the neighborhoods and, catching into some trouble. So, yeah, so they put me into some activities, and it was dance. And after doing that, like, I fell in love with it. I was like, okay, I want to do this every day, all the time. And then they couldn't take me out of it after that. So, yeah, that's what got me started into dance. Yeah.
Nice. Interesting. Thank you. I always find it interesting to hear how people got into it, because, yeah, it says a lot about us. It doesn't say everything about us, but it says something about our story, just how we entered into the thing that we love so much. All right, Binta, what about you? We can't hear you. The mic is still mute. Still mute. There we go.
Yeah. For me, it was like, I've always been dancing. I also was a child with a lot of like energy and stuff. So I always used to dance at home and like make my own performances and force my uncles and my mom and everyone to watch me. And then I think I was like 10 or something when I took my first class. And it was it was my mom who put me in that class, because she was like, okay, maybe we should put you in a dance since you have so much energy, and so yeah, that's how I got into it.
Mama knows.
Yeah.
Mama knows. All right, okay. And what about the dance hall? Now I went a little further with you, but I just got curious.
No, the dance hall, well, there wasn't any like dance hall classes or anything. I actually started by just watching like different kind of music videos and stuff. And also my uncle, when he came from London, because he lives in London, and there's a big Jamaican community there. So he had like CDs with, how to say, like CDs from the parties in Jamaica and also the parties in London. So like that's how I got to see like the real dancehall for the first time. But before that, I was just basically like imitating the music videos, Sean Paul. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. Cool. All right. Okay, Stu, what about you? How did you get this?
It's pretty similar to Binta though. It's like, it's culture wise, like family. I'm from background, Caribbean background. So music, dance is always around, food always around. So, but I gotta say, like, I never thought I would live out of it. Never, not even a second. Like, it was not meant to be like that. But then further on, when you grow up, you get youth, start to get in touch with like the American culture, and then obviously fell in love with it, and then just keep going with it like nonstop, you know, because I felt like kind of like I could identify myself with what I used to see back then, and I think that's why I fell in love with it.
What do you mean with that?
By identifying myself. One more time, I didn't hear you.
Yeah.
You say yeah, because everything in France is different, you know. They have their own pop music, they have their own like variety music, if I can say, and it's like where I grew up, it was like neighborhood, and on TV or whatever it is, it was nothing really representing us. Like, not culture-wise, it was nothing for us. But then you have always a cousin who have cousins, or like a friend who has cousin in US and go to US, bring some VHS tape, and then you see things and it's like, oh, this is what happened there. And then it's like, yeah, that looks like me more than anything else, you know? So you kind of felt like, oh, this is maybe me, you know? That's why I say I identify myself with them. Then with the time, of course, you get to learn the culture, you know, like
Yeah.
that's the
Yes.
one important thing to do also, you know?
That's what you just talked about. That I think that's really interesting, and I think a lot of people relate to that. Living in Europe, for example, and not seeing yourself in media, not seeing yourself being represented, or people who look like you or close to you, and to not see those type of artists or just people doing normal things, basically. Of course, we navigate towards other outlets to find that, and I relate a lot to that too. Like, especially African American culture has been and is still a big part of my life. And I think that identity, how it was important for my identity, like to find myself, it was super important, you know, so important.
That
Um,
is definitely a big part, like, you know, like, especially where, like, in Europe, like, I don't know, I hope it's not everywhere like that, but it looks like it's everywhere like that. But in France, it's really like, it's a country and you're not part of it, and everything that surrounds you doesn't talk to you, you know? Like, always make you feel like, okay, I'm French, but I'm not French.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
So being able to see this other culture through TV or through radio, or like back then we used to have the magazines, you remember? Like,
yeah,
we were running to the library and buy magazine, and you could see how they dress, how they, you know, you could see many things. So through that, like, of course, it's easier to be like, oh, this is me, like, really is really like this. I think,
yeah,
yes, you
yeah.
know.
With that, when I think of myself with that, there was an acceptance of blackness and black expressions that was being celebrated in hip hop, you know, that I didn't see around here. And when I saw that, there was a huge part of me that wasn't active, that was like, hey, it's okay, you can be, you know. There's a whole part that was just dormant. It was just sleeping because there wasn't any representation, and what I just would hear around was that this part was not good, you know, the black part was not good. It was not encouraged. It was the opposite all the time. So with hip hop, that made that the blackness in me would live out, you know, and it would make more of a whole being, and it would help me just get to know who I am and function as a person, because it's so linked to identity and who you are. And yeah, it makes perfect sense that it might be a different way of relating to culture and this dance that we do when it's so connected to your identity and personality and your process and development. I think hip hop has that, you know, it touches everybody who's, if you like it, it's going to touch you, you know, in a deep way. But living as a minority in a super white country area neighborhood, and you need like a black source of inspiration to actually show you it's okay. It's actually show it's okay to have your hair like this, to show you it's not just okay, it's good, it's cool, it looks nice, it's beautiful. Like, we need a strong source of that type of inspiration, and hip hop has really done that for so many of us. And dance hall
Yeah.
and another black color, you know.
Yeah, I wanted to chime in. I feel like it's so deeply connected too, because it is tradition that's being continued, you know, it is still legacy that's being continued. So that's why for us it's like it's the connection, you know what I mean? We're so drawn to it. Hip hop is not just like a trendy thing, like it is culture, it is tradition that is being continued, you know, throughout. So that's what we feel so connected to it, you know, no matter where you're from, you know, as people, you're like, oh, Joe, that's my shit. You know, that's my stuff right there, you know. So I think, yeah.
So, Toyin, what about you, you know, growing up in the States and being inside of that, you know, not watching from across the pond like we have been, and then over here we kind of made our own thing with that, with the influences from here as well, good and bad, you know, it's all there. But for you, how is it to see like hip hop or African American culture in general just being so embraced all over the world, and people also taking it to heart, like, this is me, you know, people who maybe never been to the States before, never, but they feel like, how, I can imagine that comes with complex emotions maybe.
For sure, yeah. I think
Yeah.
because it's
How is it?
because anything that's taken, you know, it can be changed into whatever, you know, they want it to be. And so I think so for us here, you know, it's beautiful, like, you know, to have that platform, to have that bit of a place where you could be free, you know, you can scream loud and say, yo, I'm Black, you know. But I think also when it gets commercial, when it gets taken for commercial use, you know, then that's when it doesn't feel good, you know. And especially in this time now, when there's Black Lives Matter, there's all people now are using Blackness as a trend, you know, using it as a commercial way to sell things, you know. And so that's when it doesn't feel good. So the embrace of it is amazing, you know, to see it all across the world. But then the commercial use of something that is not commercial, you know what I mean? That's not like, you know what I mean? It is rooted in something. Yeah, it just really sucks to see that, you know. So, you know, it's such true because it's so much happening now, you know what I mean? It's really happening a lot now that people want it in the commercials to sell things. People want the Black lives, you know, they want it, you know. They're gonna ask for the Black person to do this, you know, because they know that people are on that tip right now, you know. But I think a thing too for myself that was tough to identify with was the ways that people like me were seen. So darker skinned women, you know, were seen, you know, in media or within, you know, I guess you said the hip hop culture, as far as from TV, you know, and things like that. It was always the darker skinned person that was seen as loud, seen as with the attitude, you know what I mean? So even though, you know, people love it, people love to use it, the attitude and the head swinging and things like that, you know what I mean? But when we do it, then, you know, it's not really liked.
Then it's
so
a bit
that,
out.
You know, so that within hip hop too is annoying, you know, to see something that we do constantly is an everyday thing. But when we do it, it's not praised. But when other people do it, you know, when they snap their fingers, when they swing their head, when they, you know, when they wear the nails like that and all that, you know what I mean? And they talk like that, you know what I mean? It's cute, but you know, it's not cute when we do it.
No, that's a fact too. You know, and there's a lot of people who make careers like this, like being just a little touching on Black culture, and then they become the cool one. Now I'm thinking of people who are really, really talented, but when they, as a white person, and you go into Black culture like that, I'm thinking of like, okay, example, Miley Cyrus, white pop artist girl doing her thing, did the Hannah Montana, whatever she came from, you know, with that. And then she wants to rebel from that Disney girl channel mode and I don't know if she's going through things, but she wants to change. And she uses a lot of hip hop influences in her music. You know, she was getting into the music would change, the twerking will be all over. It will be a lot of things that she would start to do, and it was trendy. And now she became cool, and now it's a cool thing that she's doing this. But then she can throw it away also the next minute, as she did, and be like, I'm done with this now. I got my moment of fame with this. I got some attention. This was just a little, you know, part of my life. Now I'm going into something else, and she can go back to whiteness. But now she has some cool credits in her backpack, you know, with that. And as Black people, we cannot go in and out of our culture in that way. And it's also something that I feel people don't think about a lot, that it's unreflected. I don't know if Miley Cyrus was thinking about this while she was doing it, maybe later. And that's a topic I want to get into later also, this stuff that people don't think about, they're not aware of, they're doing it. And then when someone calls them out or brings attention to it, they're like, you're the problem. Why are you making the problem in this peaceful world? And like, well, but just, we're going to get into that. But just coming back to culture being spread all over the world, and that there's so much beauty within that. There's so much problems also that can be caused within that. If this culture wasn't spread all over, maybe the three of us would not be here, you know, today. And all the people who are watching and listening wouldn't be here either. So it's something that connects us. And this is a question for all of you. And Binta, maybe this is also like a Jamaica dancehall thing. But how come dancehall and hip hop have become so big and touches so many people all over the world? What is it about these art forms that makes people just, wow, this is me, I love this, I want to do this all day, when they live across the world? Jamaica, for example, is a small island. It's really small, but it had a huge effect on the world. And hip hop, what about it? Is it that people in Sweden, in Japan, in Kazakhstan, in Senegal, what is it that people are connecting to? Why is it so powerful? What's in the sauce? What's in the sauce that make it so powerful? Binta, your mic.
I said Black.
Ah, okay, elaborate. What do you?
No, I'm not sure. Like, I don't have an answer to that question, but I mean, the vibe, like in all these like dance cultures, like for example, if I take dancehall and Jamaica as example, like when I go there and participate in the dancehall there, it's just like the feeling, like just the raw feeling. I don't know how to really like explain it with words, but it's just a feeling that makes you just, I don't know, like love it and like want to be a part.
You muted yourself really smoothly there, but we heard you. You wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah, sorry, that wasn't me, but yeah.
Someone else, they were like, stop.
Julia.
But yes, a feeling, a vibe, an energy, a raw essence. Definitely. I think you find that in most Black cultures. Yeah, maybe in other cultures as well, but you went for Black, and I feel you. There's a lot of energies connected to it without maybe having the words always for it. Because
yeah, I feel like it's like I don't know to go deep, but I think there's like some type of frequency, you know, with the sounds that we use, you know, as Black people, and so it goes deep, and it like you said, that feeling, it hits certain parts of people that brings them together, you know, without speech, without whatever, but it just brings people together. So I think it's like, I don't know, I'm bringing it to, I don't know, I'm guessing, but I'm thinking there's some type of frequency that, you know, with our type of music that we put together, from the drums to, you know, even with the lyrics, you know, the sounds of the voice on a track, you know, on something. It's like that combination. It does something to the soul. So, yeah.
True. Yes. Stu, what about you? What do you think?
I think anything concerning Afro culture or the diaspora itself is it always been a welcoming culture in general. If you take it in a small scales, we always used to invite the neighbor home, come and eat home. And of course, music is there. And of course, the kids are dancing or the auntie is dancing. And that is a small scales for every. As soon as you have a background that is Afro, you will see this everywhere. And then if you make it to a bigger scale, then you have before hip hop culture came out, there was another type of culture, like like. But when I'm gonna take hip hop for example, I think people always been around and surrounded by this. I mean, people outside of the culture, and they always seen, this envy and attracted by this. They want to see, but the moment they've been invited and welcome into it, they see themselves into something that, of course, like Binta says, is a feeling, because we all, like, everybody do by feeling, like if you ask even the jazz musician, they don't plan shit, like it's feeling, like I just watched a thing about George Clinton and said, bro, I just try to make noise and then I feel this shit. So I think it's also the way we welcome people. We always been welcoming people, it doesn't matter where they will come from. Then after, of course, it's been overused, like we've seen it with time, too much. But even though we still welcoming at some point, because it's natural for us. That's how we grew up. It goes with it was with the value, it's the whole thing, it's not just how come. So I'm not surprised. I never been surprised, And that's why, for example, to come back to what we said in the beginning, that's why I felt like back then in France, I felt like that was me on TV or my cousin. It could be anyone, because I could feel that, like through the image they were spreading before it becomes just crazy with the ladies and the cars and the money and the drugs. But like if anyone had the chance back in the days from Europe or outside of America, just you saw a video of Tribe Called Quest or Jungle Brothers, and you see how they dress and how the video is filmed, you're like, okay, this is not something you don't know. You probably lived that video at some point somewhere in your family or in your neighborhood. You know what I mean? So I think our culture always been welcoming, and this, if you put this to a big scale, it just attract people to it. It's no secret. I don't think there's a secret for that. That's my point on it.
Yeah, no, but that's very interesting. That's really interesting, and it makes sense to me. And speaking of this being welcoming, now people are talking about this thing of being a guest in the culture. I'm bringing it up because, yeah, people are wondering, what is that? Some people are really happy with that. Some people are very feeling offended. And it's interesting with what you said here about being welcoming. It's an open culture. Come, I don't know you, but you are here. We're in the same place, or you're my neighbor, or whatever it is. That it also can bring in the opportunity of abusing that welcomeness. And if this being a guest is offensive to someone or not, like maybe it's a good thing to define what that is. Because personally, I haven't heard this term growing up, even though we would still discuss about people in that way, but it was never like a term that was used around me until a few years back. And it's still a word that personally I choose when I say it because it always causes conflicts. But I think it's a really good word that it's there because it explains something very clear with just one word. And what do you think about this? Is it a term that you use? What do you want to tell people about that? Should people be offended with this term? Should be happy to be a guest? It's maybe a wonderful thing to be a guest. What's your take on this?
For me, and before the word came out, I always said that I was in love with another culture. I understood this really early. Like, I find a lot of similarity with American culture and Caribbean culture without knowing that it was a lot of Caribbean living in America, But I still find the similarities. So I knew that was not my culture. And naturally, I was a guest, but I'd never put a word on it. But I always felt like that way. I never thought that this is mine and I made it up, or someone from my country made it up because I saw it the first time in my country. No, I never felt that way. And the reason why is because I have also my culture, and if I have to think like that, like, okay, if it was like, for example, we have Zouk in Martinique, right? And then Zouk become the big thing. Like, I would not like people to overuse it or change things in it, and then it becomes something which is already happening with the Kizomba world. You know what I mean? But so I really understand every American, and I usually say to people like, okay, how did you grow up? Which music did you pick up when you grew up? When you were a kid? I say some people in America, they I don't know, I'm gonna say bullshit, but I'm gonna say they're gonna play Mini Ripperton, and the moment they're gonna play that song, the way it's gonna resonate inside of them, I will never fade that one, because I didn't grow up with Mini Ripperton. But tomorrow you give me a old school Zouk, I go out of my mind easy. You know what I mean? I will jumping around everywhere, and because the feeling that brings me, it's not the same. So that's how I compare. I'm like, of course, if I play a Zouk song to an American guy, it will be there. It's cool. He will not understand my emotion into it. But if they play me a James Brown, it's the same thing. As much as I like James Brown or whoever it is back then, it's not gonna resonate the same way because I didn't grow up with it. And this is part of the culture. Like the song, the Zouk is part of my culture. I cannot be. I understand the guest. I think we should use it probably more. It came now because you know what, hip hop is an evolution. So we do get to question things with time. So the question is coming now. Maybe it's the good timing. It's time also people to understand that these are cultures. You don't want people to overstep your own culture. Why would you overstep other people's culture? For me, it's as simple as that. After I know there's people they say we have our own story. I say, yeah, but you have your own story through other stories, history of people, and you have to make the difference. But I know you upset people, but I don't care,
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
way it is. It is the
Yeah.
way it is,
Just the way. And I think that's why to talk about it, it makes it less tension around it, and it can maybe not only touch the ego, maybe it can touch other things, as well. Thank you. What about you, Toyin?
Yeah, I mean, I think like I agree with Stu completely. Yeah, I think it's something like, and I also agree with you, Niki. Like I didn't hear this word before growing up. But yeah, we would talk about things like that. But I did this term. I think it only came about now with the taking back of your own culture. You know what I mean? So through that generation or through that time of people taking things back, they're also like, okay, we also have to address this too. And if I think of the analogy, I'm just thinking of a home, a house, and when you have guests come over, but if they start taking things, moving things, adjusting things, after a while, you got to let them know, hey, you're a guest, right? I've welcomed you in, but I have to remind you now that you are a guest. So just, remember that too, that I welcomed you to my home and I've embraced you, but do remember that you're a guest, as well. So I think, over time, it's now where we're taking things back, but we also have to remind people too that they're guests here, and we don't like the way that they're rearranging our furniture and our things. So,
Yeah. Yes. Because I mean, using that analogy, I think is perfect, because also when you go to someone's house, many times they have made food for you, and they made that really nice food for you. If you spend the night, they're like making the bed for you, preparing some breakfast. So it's also a beautiful thing to be able to be a guest. It's not just a reminder of that you're an outsider, you know? And that's what I think people feel now often, or some people feel that you're.
But I wonder why that though, the outsider, because it's interesting to me that the guest part of it, right? If you're a guest, you're not outside, you're inside, right? If you're a guest into someone's home. So I'm just trying to understand. I'm so interested into knowing that side too. You know, it's beautiful, these panel discussions and like these discussions on Black culture, Black heritage and all this stuff. But I'm so interested also to understand the other side. Why do they feel that way? You know what I mean? What is the conversations that they're having to make them feel this way? You know, I'm so curious to know that dialogue as well, and just to hear, you know, what brings about that feeling, you know, what has happened to make you think that way or feel that way. But yeah.
I don't know, but it could be also power dynamics, you know, because if I'm a guest, that means someone else has more experience or access naturally than I do. And maybe that person can tell me it's time to leave, you know. Maybe that is something that makes people like, I'm not a guest. I'm in the house, you know. I'm decorating this place, you know. I'm here, you know. Look how nice I've made it. Isn't it nice? Yes, it's nice, but you still have another house. But maybe that's a question for the people. I'm also encouraging people who are listening that you can give us questions and also maybe answer our questions, maybe help us with this. To keep the conversation alive. Use the Q&A button, write your question or maybe your answer or idea there, and hopefully we're going to be able to see it and discuss it. Yes, So Binta, what about the dancehall community? Are you using this word or something like it? Where is the conversation on this being a guest in the culture or not?
I'm definitely a guest. Just like Toyin and Stu was saying before, like I agree on everything there. But I also know, like in dancehall, we have like, I think it's like two separate, like the ones who think like me and the ones who think that they're not a guest, even if they are a guest, you know? So, I mean, the discussions there is a little bit all over the place. A lot of people is arguing and fighting. There's a lot of discussions, especially since 2020 from this year. It's like discussions everywhere, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. But definitely we are guests in the dancehall community, definitely. If you're not born and raised in Jamaica.
Is it a difference? Now I'm asking the questions. Can you be more or less of a guest? Is that even possible? Like you as a Swedish Gambian girl, having West African heritage and Jamaica being heavily influenced by West African culture, for example, and to see that some of these things are aligned, you know, in your culture, if I say from Gambia, and also maybe with dancehall culture. And is it I'm going out there now, I just want to put it on the table, so we're discussing these things. Is it a difference for someone like you who have that type of heritage in your background versus someone who doesn't have that type of heritage in the background, that has no connection to Jamaican culture or African culture or Black culture in general? Is it or are we just all guests? Or I'm wondering.
I'm not sure what to answer there, but I would probably say that we all are guests. But then I would say that different guests understand different things. Like if you are, like for me from Gambia, for example, and the culture is kind of similar and whatever, I think that it's easier for me to understand and also participate in dancehall than if you're coming from Russia, for example. So I think that like the blackness in me like helps me to understand more than somebody who is not black or don't have any connection to the black community at all. So I think definitely that helps, but I don't consider me as being more of a white person being more of a guest than me. I think both of us are guests in the dancehall culture, but I think it's easier for me to understand and maybe participate. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe it's easier, like for example, if you just come into a culture like that, and let's say for example you have you're not aware of certain things, and let's say you're coming from Russia, for example, some things that you do in the dance hall might like the people might feel that it's more I'm not sure of the word.
Yeah.
If it comes from a white person than a black person from another country, from another culture.
So that's, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And that brings me to this of like, okay. Okay, you know, these things that you talk about in private but you don't want to talk about out loud, but right now it's just us, but it's so many people at the same time, so it's like, what do I say, and it's just not to that something is secret, it's just to say it in a way that actually is understandable, you know, for people coming from different type of backgrounds. So it makes me think of like cultural appropriation, for example, this thing of Binta was mentioning, if a black person comes to Jamaica and that person is not from Jamaica, but they do a certain thing, it might be okay and maybe seen as more challenging if a white person comes to Jamaica and do that same thing, right? That's kind of what you were mentioning. And this, for me, it makes me think of heritage and how we see our heritage. Because joining dancehall culture, for example, or hip hop culture, I think it automatically points out those historical differences. For example, when I go to Jamaica, people are so open and loving because I have Ethiopian heritage. Or one of the reasons why is because I have an Ethiopian heritage, for example. That's a history. That's because of history. Jamaica's connection with Ethiopia, that in history, right? That's something that's manifesting when I'm involved with dancehall culture or Jamaicans. But if you look at European history in connection to Black history, it's a very painful past that we have trouble really actually just talking about and healing from. And that's why I think we have a lot of anger, we have trauma, there's so many different things. And then being a white person coming to Jamaica and doing that very same thing that a Black guest would come and do might be offensive, also in relation to this history not being dealt with. And this white person might not even be aware of how that is relevant today. Since we often have had these conversations in private, because when we speak out loud, you know, we would get in trouble in different ways. And now the conversation has came out there in a different way, and it's there more and more. And we have to have this uncomfortable conversations and remind people of like, yeah, but when you enter the room, you come with your ancestors or you come with your heritage. And when this person entered the room, they come with their heritage. Maybe it's not you, but it's about the whole culture that you kind of represent, whether you like it or not. You know? And this part, I think it's something very important and that we kind of have skipped or missed in the dance community over the years, or it hasn't been an open conversation. And now it is. Now we are talking about it. And many people are surprised And they're like, what's happening? Why are you saying that? Why aren't we together? Well, let's be together. Why we have to talk about these things? And what I think is important to know is that this togetherness, speaking just for myself, is always the goal. Always the goal. But people being unaware of the separation that they are making, unaware of the oppression and discrimination that they are actually doing, whether they want to or not. And then coming into the dance culture, like, why shouldn't we be together? Why are you creating separation? It's like, well, you and your whole life are doing that every day. But I'm calling it out and I'm talking about it. And that doesn't necessarily have to make me the problem, but it's a bigger issue. So talking about it is something, but how do you deal with this in your own relationship with people? It could be at work, or it could be with friends that you have who are into the dance and they want to be part of everything, but they never really looked at that historical aspect and understand how that relates to today, for example. Or the discrimination is happening today, but they want to be part of the culture, but they don't want to get into any of those type of talks, and they feel it's just difficult. And why are we talking about this when we can be together and have fun? And not understanding how these two are working together. That was a long rant, but still, how do you deal with this in your personal life? If you have teachers, colleagues, friends, or something that are here, they're down with the culture, but they don't want to get into this part. They just feel it's uncomfortable. How do you deal with these people? Do you feel like, okay, well, maybe you should check out this documentary, or do you avoid that, or how do you deal with that? Stu?
Well, it's definitely through education. Like you have to. Now it looks like people make us want, like they've kind of forced us to be pedagogic, if you understand what I mean. It's like we have to be careful how we're gonna educate people. That's one way of doing, and there's the other way also, where you do have to expose people to reality, And for example, I'm gonna quote Sugar Pop because I'm really close to him. For example, he's really someone who really gonna show people things how they are, Sometimes if you're sensitive, majority of people just gonna leave the room and be like, this guy is crazy, like it's too much. But then also you have the other type of people who actually take the time to be pedagogue. So I don't have an answer if either we have to be pedagogue. I don't feel like I want to be pedagogue with people, but I do want to educate them, And I do know through the education I'm gonna try to give, or knowledge I'm gonna give, I might hurt some people, And maybe it's the way it is, but then if they overcome this painful and uncomfort talk, comes something good out of it. But I think is really right now. I think this is what I took for myself, but I think this is what everybody also feel like. We're becoming in this situation where we are trying to not hurt people, but with a hurtful conversation. You know what I mean? And because of course, if you're a good pedagogue, you know that if you hurt people, you might then be like they have a block on you, and they won't learn actually. You know what I mean? Which is really Scandinavian. I say that because I live in Scandinavia, and I know you guys are super pedagogue, like super, and I appreciate it. I think this is a lux. Like that's why I think like in Scandinavia, I feel really comfortable, because majority of people, they try to not hurt people and try to explain them in a way, which before I didn't think like that. So my old mind about being a pedagogue or how to share is different now because of Scandinavia. But on the other side, I really want also people to realize that there's a lot of talk or discussion or situation that are painful, and you need to understand that I cannot minimize everything just for you to feel comfortable with it. You know what I mean? So I do like you just said. I say to people, you know what? When I really, and this is when you know if I want to spend time or not. you should check this and that. And after, when if you are curious about it, always come and ask questions. And then sometimes I have heated discussion even with my own brothers, you know, because it is everybody who actually needs that conversation. So it's not only just white people, but it's like I used to say, for example, in Norway where I live, eh, like we don't have the same immigration in Scandinavia than in France, for example. So in Norway, I'm just going to talk for Norway, a lot of kids or a lot of youth are inspired by America, but sometimes in a bad way, because they're going to take slang from America and use words that you're like, bro, you sure you want to use those words? And sometimes you want to tell them like, look, in one sentence, you've been using slang from New York, LA, Texas, and Chicago. And I'd be like, bro, it doesn't make sense for me. Where are you? Like, where you know what I mean? And this every time show me that, okay, bro, you didn't get that. Each of those area actually have their own way of talking, you know? And if you don't understand that, and I'm talking about black people in Norway, not even yet talking about the white people in Norway. But it's like, that's what I'm saying. Like, this conversation needs to be with everybody also, you know? Like, it's not only white people, but even us, black people. Like when I watch the youth, I'm like, yo, bro, you need to understand that we need to educate everybody in different ways. So I don't know if we have to be pedagogue or not. Maybe try to find a balance, because obviously some people are more sensitive than others. And also I believe also is like it depends on who you're facing, you know? Like, if you're facing a sensitive person, try to be more pedagogue. It's not easy for everybody to do like this. If we feel like that person can take, let's give them a proper education, you know, like, so they understand really what's going on. But it's really sensitive. Right now, I can feel like this is the thing right now, like going on right now, especially here. You know, that's my take on it. You let me know.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Toyin, what about you?
Yeah, you know, I think if the people you're talking to is your friends, right? These are people that care about you. I feel like I should be able to say the words how I feel, right? So I should be able to express myself how I feel, and it should be understanding, because within friendship there should be some understanding. So I feel like, so I feel like if I'm talking to my friends, if I'm talking to my people, then I should be able to speak my mind. But for me, I don't think I'm on the pedagogy like top list, you know what I mean? So I'm still, you know what I mean? So I'm still trying to figure out how to speak when it's in this type of setting, when I'm speaking about stuff that is hard, stuff that is difficult, and stuff that is painful. Because I think there needs to be a balance, you know, in these kind of discussions, because there needs to be a balance of being able to express freely and honestly, and then also being able to be clear with your words as well, for people to understand what it is that you're trying to say through your emotions. So yeah, I think when talking about these things, there should be balance where I should be able to plainly say how I feel, plainly say what hurts, plainly say what I don't like and what I do like. But like Stu was saying, everyone isn't that. You know, everyone isn't the person that's going to say, "Hey, read this book," or "Hey," like, come on. There's some people that are out there that are great at that, and that's what they do. But I think to look for every Black person to be that is unfair. You know, it's very unfair. Already, we're in the trenches dealing with what we're going through. So then to say, okay, take that aside and now teach me, teach me all your history. Like, yo, I'm sitting here trying to understand my own history, trying to understand what I come from, and also try to deal with the trauma and the pain that goes along with that. So I think, to look for Black people to be that to you, to explain and to explain it in the way that's not going to hurt your feelings as well, is very unfair. Very unfair.
Agree. And difficult, I think, to be able to have this type of conversation. Honestly, I think it takes almost years to get there. there's so much you have to process. Stu was mentioning we need to have this conversation with ourselves as Black people as well, and also understand what it is that we, all these self mechanisms that we, like defense mechanisms that we have to put up just to go outside, go to the store and go back. There's certain things that we do because we don't want to be suspected of stealing or suspected of this. There's a whole line of things that maybe no one taught us, but we had to learn to be able to just go through the day. So then to also having to be a pedagogic teacher about the pain that we go through, I also feel it's a lot to ask from people. And at the same time, important for people to learn, regardless where we are from. And to really, like, I encourage everyone who's listening now too, like, you are participating in the conversation because you are here, you're here. But to use these type of moments, use the literature that's out there, use all of it, so you don't use your Black friends or people around you to always having to explain to you, because it's more painful than I think you can imagine, or that people imagine. And it's not just easy, like, just do this, because the way it's being received is not in an easy way. If people are like, oh, really, that's how you feel? Oh, that's what you go through? I didn't know. Let me rethink about this. Let me do some research and see how I can contribute to a better world. Usually it's the opposite. People are like, no, I'm never doing that. And that's okay because, and then they find a list of reasons or excuses of why it's okay to keep this behavior going, regardless of what you just said. So it's a very vulnerable position to put yourself in. Binta, I know that you're gonna have to leave us soon. And just on a final note, like, how do you deal with this and your people surrounding you? Are you the teacher, the pedagogic one? Are you the one who's like, you know what, figure it out, here's an Insta account, check it out, I'm gonna be over here? Or does it vary, or how does it go?
Yeah, I think it depends on, but most of the time I get very emotional and frustrated and also angry. So I'm not the best person to have these kind of conversations with if you are not aware of this kind of stuff. Let's say, for example, you're a white person, want to learn. I'm not the person to come to, because no, I'm not gonna do that. Sometimes I will tell people to like watch movies, read books, or follow other like really good, like people who can speak better about these kind of topics than me, like a lot of Instagram accounts and whatever that I always tell my students to go and follow. Sometimes I do like, and then I explain myself, or not myself, but I explain the things that I want them to understand. But most of the time I don't, because I don't have that patience. Because I get upset, I will cry, I will walk away, So I can't too much.
Yeah, I got you. Nice. Well, before you leave, just on a lighter note, do you think that we can have, by us having these conversations now, this is my dream, I think. This is my dream scenario. By us and other people having the conversation now, maybe we don't have to later. And maybe the next generation don't have to have these talks in this way, and so on and so forth. And that's my dream, and that's my goal, that we can be together and not having to talk about it because it's not oppression happening, Binta, to start with you, like, what would be your ideal outcome of having these type of conversations, or your ideal world, the dance community world, when it comes to this?
Wow, I don't know. Big question.
Yes.
I don't know, like the ideal would be to not like having to explain all these kind of things that we as Black people think is självklara.
It's obvious.
Obvious, thank you. That is obvious, and oh my God, I don't know. It's so the ideal of. I have to pass. Let me think.
Yes, take it. Because with all this things that are happening, we better have like a focus on that ideal world, because then maybe we can get there. Who knows? I hope.
Hopefully.
Yes. Toyin, what about you?
That is a hard question. I think it's so hard too, because pain and trauma, like all this shit has been ingrained in our lives, you know, in a way. So even the things that you're saying, like that were taught, the things that we have to do when we leave out the house, like it's so ingrained in us, you know what I mean, that I don't even know how to see it without, you know what I mean? Like it's, yeah, so that's a really, really hard one. But I think what I would really love for us as a people would be to be able to, because we're such a people based in love, right? So like how Stu was talking about from the beginning, the gather, like the welcomingness, right? We're such a people that's based in like love, like real love in everything that we do, that I would hope that we can live a life that survival isn't the first thing anymore. That love can now be the thing that is the forefront. You know what I mean? Because I feel like survival is like our go-to, our number one. Everything is survival. How are we going to survive this? How are we going to survive that? It's no more based in love first. You know what I mean? So I think if the ideal world would be for us to just move from that space and no longer have to worry about that anymore. Longer have to be like, oh, in every situation, I got to make sure that we're surviving, my family survive, my people, like, you know what I mean? You get what I'm saying? Because it's crazy. Like when you really think about it, everything that we do is based in that. Like everything, we got to survive. We're trying to survive, you know? So, yeah.
Deep. That's deep and beautiful. Yeah, thank you. Stu, what about you? What's your ideal world?
It's a little bit sum up of everything. I'm just thinking about how this is gonna get to that, and then as my realistic part of it comes and kick in. I think because it took such a long time of pain and suffer, you know. So I think it would take as much, maybe a little bit more time for things to get better. But at my scales or everybody's scales, I think it has to start with educating people, and not even just outside culture people, but like our own people, and so that we keep spreading that love that Toyin was talking about, because we still have love to give a lot, maybe too much, but we have to keep going with this because that's who we are and how we do things. And I think I don't see it coming from my generation or our generation. I think is a thing the future will tell us. And when I talk future, I think about the new generation, the kids, and is how we're gonna educate them and make sure that they have this life that we always wanted to have, you know, not having to explain ourselves. And this start today with us, like what we're doing, talking, and make sure that we are more and more talking with other people so they get it. Of course, we don't have to be pedagogue all the time, but like Toyin said, we know someone who is a pedagogue. So if we feel like we're not ready for being the nice or the smoother person to talk to, we can always direct people to the people they need to listen to at some point, you know, like you should listen to that person because that person would break it down for you in a better way that I can do, because I am dealing with it myself right now. Right. So it's not easy. The outcome is not going to come as I wish it would, you know. And we do have people like that. So it starts with us today, how we talk with people and how we communicate. And unfortunately, we are the one on the check. You know, we have been watching, we have been listening. We everything, like you say, like it feels like a normal conversation, and then you want to throw things like we usually do, but in the same time, you have to be careful because you don't want to hurt nobody. You know what I mean? But by doing what we're doing just now, and make sure that everybody who does listen do the same thing too. Like the conversation needs to be addressed anyway, at some point. So is no way now we avoid, like if we come so far so long to not just avoid that conversation. It's time to address it. And the timing, it looks like 2020 or whatever came with 2020 and 2019, looks like the timing is there, and we need to use that opportunity, you know. And hopefully for the future, that's how I see it. I think like hopefully for the future, this is gonna help the next generation to be better and better and better, you know. You know, it's like I have this thing with like, not my parents, because my parents was cool, you know, but sometimes I hear people like, they don't want to be like their parents, you know. And for example, I can say for my parents, like I can see the way I live now in Scandinavia, I cannot be like my parents when it comes to education. You know what I mean? Like they were really, really strict for certain things that I cannot be that strict here, for example. So, because also I don't have no reason here to be that strict. Like when I watch, for example, Qu'est-ce qu'il y a kid, it's so cute. Like, what you gonna do? I cannot go around and say, I'm gonna beat your ass up. It's too nice. You know what I mean? It's like, there's no reason for, but the change came from us. Like we choose to educate our kids a different way, for example. You know what I mean? And I think it will come with education and knowledge with the future, not us. Like we are the activists or whatever you want to talk about it. Like we're in the middle of it right now. We're the transition. We're not before, we're not after. We're like the one making the transition. So I think it's kind of our responsibility somehow, without being it, if I can say so.
Yes. It makes sense. And I think it's about time for us to wrap up. And we haven't received any questions so far, so we're not going to bring them up. That was too bad, you know, because it would have been a good time to talk, but we could still go on, I think, for a long time about with just us, you know. It's COVID right now, Corona everywhere, and we're having, you know, a new world kind of unfolding in front of us. And it also feels like a transition period into something new. And I'm hoping that something new is going to bring a lot of positive changes. Okay, we have we have one long question.
2 questions.
Yeah. Okay, Yared is saying, go, yay, you guys rock. All right, shout out to Yared. And from Lucas Fosmo, he's saying, in countries like Sweden, what needs to be done for hip hop and or Black culture to be represented and portrayed in an honest way? Are there culturally enough institutions or people in position that with credibility can affect the narrative about Black culture shown to the masses? Or what do we need to do for there to be? And then he writes, I experienced that a lot of white people that are not from the culture or involved with the culture, even as guests, are being given opportunities to represent hip hop based on their achievements and diplomas given to them from other white people that are not from the culture. A never ending cycle that never allows people from the culture a chance to participate. Bam! Lucas put it on the table like that. I know, my ladies, that you have to roll. But if you have something to say about this before you go, that would be amazing. Who's leaning into the mic? It looked like both of you went like...
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, that was a really good question. That was a really good question. And I think you answered it in a way of where there's not a lot of those people that are culturally educated, aware, or like immersed in that culture. They're not in those positions. And so they're not going to move from that space of knowing that like they're from that, if you get what I'm saying. So the respect and the cherishing of that culture is not necessarily going to be that. And so I guess, the thing is we need to get more people in those types of positions, so that it's more well-rounded, and so that like culture is being respected, and things like that. So yeah, and just thinking about respect, I'm sorry to go a little bit off, but going off of respect, I think Niki said something about like being able to respect your own culture, will allow you to respect others as well. I think you said something like that, Niki, a while back in another panel. But but I think that was something that was so important. And I think people needing to be able to understand and know their own culture and history of their own ancestors too, so that they can respect other people's and understand like why it hurts when it's taken. I think, I think that's also something that needs to happen more often. So yeah.
Yeah. You said something there. I forgot I even said that before, but this respect your own culture. Thank you for throwing it back. I think that, of course. I think in Scandinavia, we have a lot of culture, but still there's an understanding of that we don't have culture and that we don't like our culture. That is, people don't want to embrace that Swedish culture, for example. And there's some kind of shame coming with that. And maybe that also has something to do with being able to like dive into other cultures and be like, this is me. Woo.
Exactly. Then the person looks like they're wearing a mask every time. They're wearing the costume of another culture, so easily. Because like you said, that, not liking your own, it's easy just to dive into someone else's and be like, hey,
True. Wow, and that's
but yeah, I'm gonna jump out though. I'm sorry. I have to teach a class, you guys. I'm so sorry. This conversation is really good. So definitely, like, we need to have more of these. But thank you, Niki, so much for this. Thank you, Hiphop Revolution, for this. Thank you, Stu and Binta. Thank you.
Thank you, Toyin, for joining us. Enjoy your class. And people, if you don't follow Toyin, go follow Toyin. And also Nefer Global Movement. And you can find maybe more things like this if you're interested. Enjoy your class. And
thank you, guys.
I have to leave as well, but I want to say thank you. And I love this kind of discussions, conversation. We need to have it more often.
Nice. Yeah. Nice.
Thank you for Revolution Festival.
Yay. Bye, Binta. Have a good class. Take care of yourselves. Oi, Stu.
Sir, what up? Let me know. Talk to me.
Me and the snake. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, you live in Norway, and
yes,
you heard that question. Oh, you know what? Do you have something to add on that?
Not really. Like they pretty much what needs to be said.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think besides what was being said is that when participants of the culture are speaking up, changes can be made. If there's enough people from the community who are saying something, then maybe these people in position might be able to do something, move or listen or do something.
No, but you know what? I wanted to add this thing. Actually, it's like the guy was talking. I don't know who was saying the question, but he was talking about with all the institutions we have and everything. Okay, I say this based also my point of view because I talk from experience. But for example, in Norway, they do have institutions. They have like the dance federation and things like that going on. And I learned from my friend Hung. If you ever met Hung before, she organized like urban move and things like that. But she's really good at it. Like her thing is, she go to those institutions and try to see how they works, and then they try kind of infiltrate it. You know what I mean? Like through their own system. It's a long time game.
Yeah.
It's a very long time game, but that's sometime for those type of institution, that's what needs to be done, because they're never gonna let you come and change things just like that. So what needs to be done is also we as a culture or part of a culture and community, we need to be able also to infiltrate those places to actually put the people you need to be on the spot, you know. So it's not easy because sometimes, like I'm pretty sure in Sweden you have the same issue too. It's like there's people who would be against working with those type of institution amongst our community, and there is those who really want to try to do something about it. But of course, if you don't have everybody in your back, it's difficult. But at the end of the day, I've seen Huang doing crazy things, getting in, and in a period of maybe 5 to 7 years, get to a position where now we almost, not yet, but like we have we have a big voice, not a small one. Like, and it's because she took the time to understand how they works with their system, how they have a voting system, they have a way of getting to certain spot a certain way, they have a board, they have meeting board, and they who all the question or talk we need to have happens.
Yeah.
So it's just about it. Like we everybody probably heard about the Olympics, for
Yeah.
example, and there was a big talk about it.
Yeah.
And so at first, I'm gonna be honest with you. At first, I was really against it. I was like, oh, they're gonna take it again and blah blah blah. But then,
Breaking going to the Olympics.
yeah. But
Just
you
so
know, they if breaking goes, they probably want to do hip hop too.
oh.
That's the scary part, you know, right? It's scary and not scary because at the end of the day, is who is in control.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you cannot identify who is in control if you're not in either. So you do have to be part of the system to really kind of observe. Because the breaking, I think, where they was really smart is they pick up people just that never talk really with each other. So it comes with a lot of contradiction. You know what I mean? And hip hop is going to be more difficult for them because that group is a little bit more tighter to have the right people on the seat, you know. But if we get to those seat and those place, we need to be able to take over things like that. And I say this is Olympic, but I have the same mindset for the music industry too. It's the reason why I want all the artists to be independent. And I always preach artists like it's maybe a longer time and game to do, but it's more beneficial at the end of the day. Even if you don't become,
control of your own thing.
you know what I mean? Like you don't want to have to do. And I've seen so many, and you've seen so many artists that have been destroyed by that.
Of course, yeah.
And it's not as because they didn't become successful. It's just because they become somehow disgusted of what they've been doing, and they start to depress, and that depress is just an infernal circle. You know what I mean? So I think all those type of institution needs to be infiltrated. It's a chess game. The chess game is Terry Brooklyn told me about this. He said we need to play the chess game. I don't. At first, I didn't like it, but at the end of the day, I'm like, yeah, that's the reality we live in, you know. Because I remember when that movie came out, I was not for it, like the Black Panther thing with Chad Boseman, rest in peace. But the image that he sent me was really not the one. I don't know why I felt it like this, but that was not the image I wanted to receive. Out of the fact that it's a good thing for the kids, for our community and anything, so they have a hero to look up for. At the end of the day, for me, only thing I see was like, yeah, they want the black guy to shut up at the end of the day, like Mandela was back in the day. Like they give you the seat, they say, yeah, we give you a position, but now you need to come down everybody else. And,
Yeah.
and at the end of the movie is that type of talk they have, and I'm like, I'm not with it, you know what I mean?
Okay, I understand what you mean with that.
So we need to be able to infiltrate things, you know, and be able to work and see how we can actually install our own self into it. Like it's like reclaim it. As we reclaim word, we need to reclaim institution.
Yeah, for
It's a
sure.
long game, long time game.
Yes, I've been playing that game now for the past maybe 3-4 years, and it's a challenge. It's a big challenge to be
It
in those
is.
groups. And it's so, the system has been there for such a long time. And when you are already a face that they don't trust, you have to prove so much all the time. And it's really, at least for me, it's very uninspiring place to prove people that I'm worthy of being heard or listened to. And also, things can happen when you go this way, definitely. But I think we need more ways. We need more ways
Oh,
than that.
for sure. I think we need to be upfront everything anyway.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that side of the challenge is, I know it because it can be like you can be disappointed by it
Yeah.
yourself,
Oh, yeah,
because
yeah,
it's like, if we think hip hop or whatever is a tough environment, institution are the worst one, because shit's going down the way is like, it really is a movie sometime, and I'm like, what? This is what happened? Whoa, okay, So if you're alone in that environment, not easy. You know what I
No,
mean? So we need to build team and things like that.
exactly. We need to be together.
Mhm.
We have one question here. I figure we'll take that one as the last thing before we end up. Strive for coming from a place of love, not survival. Wouldn't that disrupt the balance? Our natural instincts are based on survival, just like love. Excluding survival would seem contradicting to our natural ways of Earth. We should always strive for love, but never exclude one part of our existence, especially if it stimulates our growth so much. Okay, that is what Toyin was talking about before. When I was talking about how would you picture a beautiful or like a dream world, and she said that we would go from love, not survival. And I don't know if she meant that it has to be one or the other. At least from what I've saw with that was that having more love involved and daring to have more love involved. Because when we talk about survival, whose survival are we talking about? If I'm looking at like all these cops, police killings in the States that's been on the news a lot lately, and many of those policemen, they're like, I was afraid for my life. I had to do it like this. And in that situation, I would love for it to be more love than survival. This police officer is talking about survival, like I was afraid something would happen to me. And in my mind, I think that's where Toyin was coming from. Now she's not here to be able to answer that for herself. But survival is always going to be key because we need to survive to live. But to do that with love, yeah, I think that would be a beautiful thing. Is there anything else that you want to add, Stu, that we haven't talked about?
No, not really. I think we it was a good talk today.
I
Like
think
we
so.
we touch a lot of subject
Yeah.
that will, I hope, make people think and probably do their own research, or probably ask question, or even like, discuss
Mm,
about things,
mm,
more and
yeah.
more.
I agree. And this is a conversation, ongoing conversation. I find myself, the more I learn, the more I talk about these things, the more, of course, I grow and the mind grow. And it's really something that needs to be nurtured for those thoughts to grow. So I'm encouraging everybody to, yeah, keep showing up like you've been doing today, keep participating, and know when to talk, know when to listen, know when it's time to be hands-on and when it's actually time to give space for someone. All of these things becomes clearer the more you engage in these conversations and so on. And it's really a community thing. It's really something that we have to do together. It cannot be done by one, two, or a few people. It's something we have to come together in. So that means we all do our part. And with that being said, I wish you all well out there, sending you love wherever you are. And thank you for tuning in. Shout out to Binta and Toyin who left by now. And Stu, it's like my brother, it's nice to talk to you. It's nice to have these conversations with you. And
Always a pleasure. You already know.
yeah, more to come.
Yes.
And shout out to Hiphop Revolution Festival for making this happen. Shout out to everybody who's been participating all throughout this festival. And yeah, I see people are writing in the chat. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh shit.
Yes, already. Thank you. So thank you. And yeah, keep the conversation alive. Like this, that's how we're gonna grow with it, and it's gonna be less tension and less difficult. Hopefully, the more we can talk about it, the more we learn, and we can create a better and healthier surrounding in our dance community. That's it.
Thank you.
We are out.
Wow.
Thank you everybody for listening, sending you all vibes. To everybody in the crew, what you gonna do? Oh,
Oh, there, you excited?
Yeah.
My sister, you know.
All right. Have a good life. Take care, everybody. Peace and love.